Welcome back to JD Videography. In today's episode, I want to talk about the darkest era of my existence. And it is perhaps the most life changing event in my adult life. But first, I want to take it back to 8th grade. I was 13 years old and first met one of the most interesting people I had ever met, a girl by the name of Wendy. She was a class comedian, but also had a sense of maturity about her, a kind of enigma that fascinated me. But I was more interested in another girl at the time, a cheerleader. So while I saw Wendy from time to time, and she only had a few classes of mine, I hadn't really pursued a relationship with her. I hadn't pursued a relationship with anyone at that time, as I had social anxiety, and I had enough else to deal with. I was content to watch others from afar. In 10th grade, I started working in the guidance office as a volunteer. By 11th grade, it was time to choose our university. Though I still hadn't decided on a major, I was leaning heavily towards the sciences. My guidance counselor gave me several options, including the university I eventually went to. While I was working in the guidance office, I overheard Wendy talking with her guidance counselor about the same university. Maybe my school had a deal with that school. After I had a dream about Wendy, I gave up on the other girl and pursued her more vehemently. I had a class with her in 12th grade, so I talked to her often. While working in the guidance office, I glanced at her file and found out her birth date. So I got her a birthday card, and at that moment, she called me a friend. And it was probably the greatest affirmation I had at that time in my life. I was goaded to pursue her even more strongly. So I decided to go to the same university as her. Since we weren't very close, I didn't realize that she already had a boyfriend. I still believed I had a chance to have a strong relationship with her. Well, I was only 18 at that time. At my high school graduation, I got the chance to hug her. The first time I hugged a girl outside of my own family. Occasionally, I visited her home, but she worked that summer. I did not. And I sent her several letters where I basically laid out my feelings for her. I figured it was all fairly harmless. Maybe did not feel the same. I never got anything back and wondered if there was perhaps something wrong with the postal service. I had devoted myself to her. I had big plans going into college. I was going to help everyone and everything. Then the unthinkable happened. I just happened to be wandering around the campus when I ran into her. I tried to greet her and be friendly with her as I had been in high school, and she told me that she never wanted to see me ever again. And I was very confused. I was shocked. I didn't understand what I had done to hurt her, but I was determined to make it right. I told her I cared about her, but she just turned around and walked away. And just like that, my entire world, my existence, was shattered. And thus began a series of terrible events that continue even still. My father lost his job in October, and my parents got divorced in November. My younger brother was kicked out of high school, but that didn't really affect me. My older brother had already left home and was living with his friends, virtually cutting off our family entirely. I was completely alone, and the one person in the world I felt I could turn to was the one who betrayed me. I had nowhere to turn and no one to turn to. I was trapped. I fell into a deep depression. I stopped eating and even stopped bathing. None of it seemed to matter anymore. I lost 90 pounds and dropped to 60 pounds. But I still hadn't given up on her. I figured if I could explain myself to her, we would be able to reconnect and continue as friends, even if the chance of us to be lovers was no longer. And she did only say that she didn't want to see me anymore. So I thought, what harm could it do to contact her electronically? I tried to apologize for whatever it was that she thought I did to her, but it only brought the school against me, giving me a warning not to contact her again. I thought it must have been some kind of joke. This could not be happening to me. Somehow, I managed to keep my grades up, though, just barely. Learning was more muscle memory than anything requiring effort. I was desperate and suicidal. I tried to contact her again, at which point the school had me arrested and I was given a restraining order against her. I'll admit, I was stupid then. I still believed in the power of love to overcome any obstacle. I had lost all self esteem, all self confidence, any sense of self that I had, and the only way to get it back was to get back together with her. I was falling into darkness. I was suicidal. I didn't care about anyone, didn't trust anyone anymore. I sent one more message to her, wishing her a happy birthday, and I was then arrested and thrown in jail for it. The entire American justice system favored her because she was the woman and therefore the victim. The system didn't care about my side of the story because I was the man and therefore irrelevant. My country had completely let me down. Though the case was eventually thrown out, I was irrevocably changed because of it. I no longer cared about anyone. As the world fell into chaos, I laughed. I was crying myself to sleep every night for 2 months. I was supposed to have been given a 4-year scholarship, but because I never completed my FAFSA application in the second year due to neither of my parents wanting to admit income, I lost my scholarship and subsequently my housing. I almost failed to return to school entirely, but I persevered. I had to live off campus. This had completely destroyed my school schedule and any chance of pursuing any dream that I had left at that point. Although I had stopped caring about school and math and hadn't even declared my major until the second semester of my junior year. The school was completely twisted. They didn't do anything to lead me in any direction toward a career, but didn't bat an eyelash when it came to me not providing my funding for the school. My school did everything in its power to prevent me from having a future. My career counselor the school provided for me knew nothing of my major, and because I was an honor student, I couldn't get another career counselor. They took without giving anything in return. I was too broken to do anything about it. I watched in apathy as the Twin Towers fell. Nothing mattered to me anymore. I didn't care about anyone. I didn't trust anyone. I was happy to see people dying. I wanted to kill everyone and destroy everything. But then a new voice emerged and saved me from the darkness. It was Brittany who created a new purpose in my life. I graduated the university with a degree in mathematics, and no idea how to use it in the real world. Actually, I hadn't gotten my degree until 10 years later, as I had considered a minor in Japanese studies, but failed to meet the requirements for that minor. But since I hadn't cancelled the minor, the degree for my major was never issued. Another flaw in the pathetic education system, and possibly cost me several potential employment opportunities. Had it not been for Brittany, I would probably have starved myself to death. But it was too little too late. My education was over and had nothing to show for it. The 4 years of what should have been the best years of my life were ruinous, and all because of one person. And so concludes my story for today. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, support me, whatever else suits your fancy. Until next time.